One of the things I've talked about a lot on my platforms over the years is sex and sexuality, but I want to explore that in a different way with you all tonight. And I want to talk about the power of abstaining or being celibate or waiting to have sex. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And over the years, I've counseled a lot of women and a lot of men on sex and sexuality, even trans, also on sex and sexuality, from everything from consent to boundaries to sexual deviance and pathological sexual behaviors, sexual trauma, being assaulted, all those kinds of things. But I want to talk with you, especially since I have a lot of younger people who watch me. And I want to talk about the power of abstaining or remaining celibate. Over the years, I'll tell you what one of the biggest complaints have been, especially with women. The complaints or regret have been, you know what, I should have waited to have sex with him, or he had sex with me and he left and I never heard from him again. But I've never once, to this day, in all my 46 years of life, I've never heard of anybody really who complained about waiting. There's never been a person that I've ever encountered personally or professionally who has had regrets about waiting to have sex. And I think this is especially true when you talk about younger people. One of the things that a lot of younger people need to learn, that surprisingly that they're not taught from their parents, is how to have autonomy over their own body, to have boundaries over their own body, to learn. They haven't learned about consent, and they've learned about you know just sort of giving people what they want or making someone happy, but you haven't learned how to stand in your own power and to be confident enough to say, I'm okay with waiting. I don't need to have sex with someone to show that I love them. I don't need to give up something in my body. And surprising as this may sound, there are so many people that I've talked to over the years that felt like, especially women get into this kind of thinking where they feel like, hey, I need to have sex with someone to show that I love them, or I don't want to lose the relationship. And that is the last reason that you should have sex. If a person is saying, have sex with me or I'm going to leave you, let them go. And you won't regret letting them go, but you will regret giving up that aspect of yourself in order to appease someone else and not yourself. And it might take you many years to learn that. And a lot of young people, they don't ever get, affection from their parents. And again, it sounds strange, but platonic physical affection where they're hugged every day, their hand is held, and they're allowed to feel safe from their parents. A lot of people don't get that. That's why that hugging challenge, I don't know if you guys remember that was on TikTok maybe a few months ago. That's why a lot of kids became emotional with that, because a lot of kids long for that touch and that connection that's platonic, that helps them to feel safe, but they don't necessarily get it, or they stop getting it after a long period of time. And then what happens when they become of age to start having sex or sexual feelings, they rush into sex to have a connection with someone because they're longing for that connection, they're longing for that safety. And a lot of people don't have the words to explain what they're looking for. They just know that they want to be touched, they want to be held, they want to be loved. And very often when you rush and you look for it, the first chance you get, it turns out to be a complete nightmare, or someone that's like your parents. And a lot of parents, unfortunately, unbeknownst to them, can be very cold, but that don't like touch, that don't ever tell their children, I love you, and things of that nature. Not all, but there are some that are out there. I'm just talking about what I know from a counseling perspective. Other people have sex out of boredom, and still others may have sex out of like not liking to, the feeling of, I don't like being alone, I don't like my bed being empty, or I don't like being by myself, so I'm going to entertain myself for a few hours or a few minutes with someone just because I don't like the thoughts or feelings of being by myself. Let me tell you, your body is your most valuable asset. It is your temple, and you need to guard it with your life. And you need to also understand that not everybody respects their body, nor will everybody respect yours. But it's up to you to set that standard and set that precedent for everybody else, and have that connection within your own self. Being connected with your own body, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's emotional, and it's one of the most highest forms of self-love. And a woman's body, especially, is very powerful. A lot of people get energy from a woman's body, from a woman's uterus. There's an energetic exchange that happens with sex, which is also why you need to be a lot more selective on who you were giving your energy to. And a lot of times it's called like yoni energy. So you want to be careful about who you're giving your energy or who you're having that energetic exchange with. That's very powerful and potent. And if you don't believe me, just look at some of the extremes that people go to have sex with a woman. Look at what people are doing to get energy and harvesting energy from women. People go through all sorts of extremes to have access to that. Be careful with that and be very selective. It's okay to wait. Who cares if the person calls you a prude or makes a judgment about you for waiting? I'm going to tell you something, you're never ever going to regret waiting. The same thing is true with men. When you have control over your penis, you have control over your loins, you have control over your mindset. And I'm going to tell you, just like, with money, you never want sex to run your emotions or run your mind. You want to have your mind be in control of sex. But if you're led around by your penis or by your thoughts over lust, you are always going to be someone that loses control. And that never fails to be true when someone is always following lust. You become a lot more spiritually connected within yourself when you wait. You become a lot more energetically intuitive, and you make smarter decisions for yourself when you're able to do that. And when you think about being a lot more conscious about the decisions that you make when you sleep with somebody, as opposed to someone who just wants to get it over with, who wants to keep the relationship, or so and so asked me to, or my girlfriend did it, or my guy friend did it, and I just want to fit in. So I can't tell you what to do, and some of you out there may think that this is corny and be like, I'm gonna have sex, I'm gonna have sex right now, but I tell you, I promise you, no one ever regrets waiting. Many people have always regretted having sex way too soon, and a lot of people regret it because they feel like they have given their power away and they made the wrong decision, or they weren't considerate enough of themselves. So I hope that helps. Thanks so much for listening to this. Take care.